What is up, everybody? My name is Andrew, and today Space Engineers 2 was officially released. So let's get into it and check out everything that's new in Space Engineers 2. And where better to start than the first screen you're going to see when you launch the game. So this is the screen showing what's in Space Engineers 2 and what's coming in the future. So it says you're joining Space Engineers 2 in its earliest stages. This first vertical slice creative mode focuses on letting you unleash your imagination with unlimited building, experiment with new blocks, design epic ships, and build the space station of your dreams, all without resource constraints. It's got a nice panel showing everything that's new, and we're going to take a look at all of these things in the video here, but you can have a quick glimpse, and then it shows you, speaking of glimpse, the glimpse of the future here, what's coming soon. So we're on vertical slice 1.0, but in the next update, 1.1, they're going to be adding the Steam Workshop, and then in the one after that, 1.2, they'll be adding improved mechanics and interface refinements. After that, they'll be adding modding in 1.5, and then we go to the farther vertical slices, which are planets and survival and water. Yes, that's right. Water is coming to Space Engineers 2 in the future. Hopefully we don't have to wait too long, but we'll see. Anyway, this is all very exciting. Let's go ahead and continue, and we'll see what the menu looks like. So we've got a nice little menu here with pretty much the same options that we saw in Space Engineers 1, except we can see that the multiplayer is grayed out because there's no multiplayer yet, as is the workshop. That is also not included quite yet. This is it's showing me the demo world that I did for the Space Engineers 2 showcase last week, but let's get in and start a new game here. And you'll see also survival mode and campaign mode are grayed out, but campaign mode is going to be quite interesting because Space Engineers 1 didn't really have a campaign. It had a couple of scenarios, but that's about it. I think in Space Engineers 2, they're planning on doing a much more in-depth campaign. We've got creative mode and we've got worlds. Worlds just shows us the empty world and the Concordia research facility. And then if we go back to the creative one, it's going to just load us into the Concordia research facility by default. So we'll load into that, and then we'll use that as our jumping off point to get into what's new in Space Engineers 2. So here we are in Space Engineers 2, and you'll notice a couple of things. First of all, the game looks amazing. Look at these, look at the thrusters. I think I mentioned this in the showcase video as well, but everything just looks so good in Space Engineers 2. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but look in the top left corner, you'll see that we have an alpha mark up there, a little alpha banner that's telling us that we're in alpha mode. So keep that in mind as we play Space Engineers 2. It's in very early alpha. This is the first ever build, so it's it's not done. In fact, it's barely even started. A lot of these blocks that are in the game aren't even functional. But I'm planning on talking about that in a future video as well, maybe coming out tomorrow or something like that. Anyways, let's talk about what's new in Space Engineers 2. So for one, everything looks incredibly amazing. Oh man, the mouse sensitivity. I don't think they have a sensitivity option yet still. Yeah, they didn't have this before. I don't think they have this now, so I'm actually just gonna have to go through and bump it down to a lower DPI on my mouse, but that's fine. So the graphics look amazing, and the reason for that is we have some very high resolution textures here. You can see if I get real close to this stuff, it looks amazing and it's very high resolution, so that's half the battle. The other half of the battle making everything looks really nice is the ray tracing. So we've got our sun point up there, and we've got ray tracing, which gives us realistic reflections going from the sun and from any light sources to things like this. So you can see, for instance, we've got the light bouncing off the ground right there. If I look over here, you'll see we have a little bit of that yellow light bouncing off of this railing right there. That's all from ray tracing. And heck, this is only in medium settings. Let me switch this up to maximum, and we'll see what we can see if I go to the extreme settings. Now, this is gonna make my GPU take off and catch on fire, but it's fine. There we go. Here's our extreme settings, and you can see that now we have everything looks a little bit darker. You can see we've got a lot of light bouncing off over on that R01. You can definitely still see that light bouncing off of this railing right here. Let's go inside the ship and look around using these extreme settings. I'm not going to be able to play on this for too long because it's not going to do very well with my graphics card, but at least for showing off the graphics in Space Engineers 2, we can do this. So let's go to a couple of rooms just so you can see what this looks like on the maximum settings. And hopefully I can get a graphics card in the future that lets me play with these. But for now, we'll have to just run it for a little bit. I mean, look at this. Look at that right there. You can see that little chip in the paint. That just looks so good. I think I saw a cool little area over here. Yeah, so you can see all these reflections right there. That's reflecting some of this stuff over here. Actually, what is that really reflecting? No, that's reflecting the stairs right there. Yeah, it's reflecting the stairs. And in fact, you can see it's doing an interesting thing with updating. It only updates every once in a while, so the reflection is not actually in real time. it's a little bit delayed. So I'm hoping that that's going to be fixed in the future, or maybe improved or optimized or something like that, so that we can get some real-time reflections. But still, that's not bad, being able to see the reflection like that. Look at this lighting going up the staircase. We've got the light on the top right there. We've got the lights right there. Moving on up, we've got this other light. Oh, here we go, an autosave. Autosave does lag the game a little bit, but it's not the worst that I've ever seen. Oh man, look at this bay right here. The lights on the side, we've got the sunlight coming in from the side right there as well. That is so good. So we can really see what the ray tracing is doing for the graphics. I want to do a couple of tests as well to show the difference between Space Engineers 1 and Space Engineers 2 when it comes to ray tracing. So the first little test that I want to do is this indirect lighting one right here, where we have this giant wall that has a long shadow. So if we go toward it, we can see that we can still see the wall. We've got all this indirect lighting hitting this area right here, so it's not casted in shadow. Now you'll see in the Space Engineers 1 comparison, it actually does this pretty well as well. So there's not too much of a difference here, other than, of course, the blocks looking amazing in Space Engineers 2 with those high resolution options. And you can also see some of those reflections bouncing off of these metal blocks. Let's go on to the second test here. So this is an interesting one here. What if we had a box and a hole facing away from the sun? How would that look? So inside the box, you can see it's mostly pitch black, but you can see a couple of details there on the ground and against the wall right there, where if I go ahead and close this, you can see those details are now invisible. You know, it's actually pitch black in here. I can't see anything. So with this open, you do have a couple of details being shown through indirect light. And if I open this a little bit more, for instance, like this, you do have a lot of indirect light coming in and lighting this room. Now you can see if we move the hole to the other side that's facing the sun, we do have the direct light coming in there and then a lot of indirect light hitting the top over here. So it's the entire, I almost said sphere, the entire square here, or cube, is actually lit up just a little bit from that. And if I open that up more, you'll see that suddenly now we have a lot of light coming in to this square just from that indirect lighting from the ray tracing. If I open it up even more, we've got that's the direct light right there, and then we've got a lot of indirect light hitting this square here. Compare that to the Space Engineers 1 one, and you can see that even though we have something like this, the rest of the area that's not directly lit is still pitch black. The final one I'll show here is using a window like this. You see we have the direct light coming through the window, and then the entire room is lit as well. So you can still see, even though we have some dark patches over here in the corners, you can still see most of the room with this little bit of light, compared to the Space Engineers 1, where a lot of the room is still pitch black, even though you have this direct light coming through. We still have the pitch black areas in the room. So anyway, those are the ray tracing tests that I wanted to do. The other one that would be interesting would be seeing the asteroids from the non-lit section, because in Space Engineers 1, this was a very important thing, is if you were on the section that did not have the sunlight, you would have a pitch black asteroid that you could not see. Here, on the other hand, you can see that we do have some light still here. If we get in close, it's a lot darker, and especially if we go into a cave, for instance, it's very dark inside there. But we do have still a little bit of lighting hitting this other side of the asteroid, instead of it being a completely pitch black thing that you can't see, like as it was in Space Engineers 1. So anyway, yeah, that's just the ray tracing stuff that I wanted to take a look at, the comparison between SE1 and SE2. Let's talk about damage. I want to show you guys some damage stuff before I change the settings back to medium or high. I really hope the recording is not that bad and is still pretty smooth while we're on these extreme settings, but let's get our damage tool out and check out what damage looks like in SE2. So in SE2, we only have a damage tool. There are no actually active tools that we can use. Oh, this is just armor, so it's not going to do much except for like kind of dent in the middle like that. But that's fine. Yeah, you see when one breaks like that? Oh, here we go. We've got a little bit of an auto save, which lagged the game a little bit, but that's fine. When one breaks, it's very similar to SE1, where it kind of gets that little dented area right there. But you also have other blocks that are not just armor, like this, for instance, a glass block that just straight up shatters and launches out of place when it gets broken. Let's take a look at that one right there. Boom, you got these glass particles flying everywhere. Oh, I love the shattering. We got stuff like this. Boom, you still have pieces of it right there that are attached. Is this still, yeah, this still has collision, so I can still run into that. It's still part of a block, but it's missing that other block right there. And yes, I can actually go through that block that's broken. Same with this right here. Boom, you'll see our thruster. If you hit it like that, we got a little bit of a thruster pieces that are coming off. It just looked very good. I love it. We can start hitting some of the sides right here. Look at the wall pieces as they shatter. They actually go into pieces, and you still have some of the wall that's up like that. We can just fire some lasers here through this thing, and you can see everything erupt into explosions. Let's go over to the cockpit. Oh, let's go into here, actually. This looks like a cool place to go into. Boom. Boom. Break some stuff right here. There we go. Break all these. Break some of these blocks as well. It's just very fun to run around in SE2 and just destroy everything. I hope my GPU is not on fire right now as much as this block here is, because Because I imagine it could be very easily. Let's just light some stuff up. Look at these right here. So these are wall pieces right here, and you can actually get, see, half wall pieces still remaining. Look at how this one breaks right here. I just love it that it breaks like in little pieces like this, and you still have these pieces sitting here. So it kind of half breaks. Like, look at that. That looks like some, you guys remember when Rainbow Six Siege was coming out and they were showing off their wall destruction where you could just break through a wall if you needed to get through? Well, that's Space Engineers too. I love the destruction. It looks so good. Oh man. Oh, it's so satisfying to just destroy stuff in this game. Just to show you guys another bit of fun, you can actually break the glass of the cockpit like this. So that's the little bit of damage that you get at first. You can break the glass of the cockpit and it's still functional. So I can still drive this thing around, even though the glass has been broken out and it's half damaged. Wonder how much damage I can get before it actually breaks. Yeah, I think at that point right there when it's on fire, it's no longer workable, but oh, there it is. All right, that is the look at the graphics in Space Engineers 2. Let's move on to the next thing. I'm gonna go down a couple graphics settings so that we have a nice smooth video from here on out. Okay, let's talk about movement in Space Engineers 2 because there's been a lot of work done to a camera stabilization tool that makes walking on asteroids not as nausea-inducing as it was in Space Engineers 1. So as I go and land on an asteroid, you'll see that as I walk around, we have a camera stabilization tool. This is what it looks like in Space Engineers 2, and let me compare that to Space Engineers 1. This is a nausea warning. Oh man, yeah, Space Engineers 1 needed a lot of help with this, but with the camera stabilization in Space Engineers 2, we now don't have to worry about throwing up every time we play Space Engineers when we're using the mag boots on an asteroid. While we're talking about movement, let's take a look at the jetpack. So the jetpack actually has two modes now, and the first mode you can activate by just holding the movement keys W, S, A, and D. And you'll notice if you look in the bottom left corner, you can only go up to 20 meters per second while holding any of these keys. If you want to go any faster, you'll have to hold the Shift key, and what you'll hear a sound indicating that this is activated, and your speed will go up to 310 meters per second, which is the maximum speed in Space Engineers 2, compared to the 100 meters per second in Space Engineers 1. The idea is that the 20 meter per second limit that you can go without holding Shift allows you to bump into things without taking any damage, whereas if you press Shift, you're activating the boost mode, and in that case, the gloves are off. If you hit something, you could very well send yourself into the afterlife. Now, the mechanics of this and the look and feel of it are still in development. This is one of the things they showed off in Prague when I was at the developer event a few days ago, and I can tell you what they have for the next update is actually looking amazing, so stay tuned for that. It's gonna be cool. And of course, speaking of movement, the movement feels tighter than it did in Space Engineers 1. It's a lot more, I guess Space Engineers 1 had a lot more drift, it seems like. You know, when you jumped a lot higher and you stayed in the air a lot longer. Whereas in Space Engineers 2, it feels like it's a little easier to move around. I almost want to say a little more arcadey, but I think I'm fine with that. I don't really want like a realistic Arma style movement where when you stop, you know, you're kind of still moving forward a little bit. It takes a little bit of time to go forward, you know, realistic style movement versus fun style movement, I guess I could say. But anyway, that's what I'm saying, is it just feels a little bit more responsive when you're jumping around. And I think that's gonna come into play a lot when you're talking about like hand-to-hand combat with, you know, hand weapons. Let's move on to one of the things that you've probably been waiting for, and that is the building tools. This is one of the huge things in Space Engineers 2. In fact, I dare say this is the huge thing in Space Engineers 2, the move away from large and small grid and the move to just grid. So we have, well, let me show you. So we have a large grid block, or an old large grid block. So let's imagine this is a large grid right there. Boom, that's a large grid block. If I wanted to place a small grid block on that, I could place this block right here, just in a line right there. So let's say I just have a couple of those placed right there. And then if I want to place an even smaller one, we actually have something called a detail cube, which goes even smaller. It goes to about a fourth of the size right there, or volumetrically, it goes about an eighth of the size right there. So yeah, you can see right there, look at that. You can make some very small blocks. You can do like a little smiley face on this thing, which is just, it's just fun. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. I'm using the corner one, but whatever. It's fine. There's our little smiley face. So this move to the unified grid system allows us to do some very cool things. For instance, if I wanted to place a block like, what's one that I would have trouble with? Oh, a window in Space Engineers 2. So a window in Space Engineers 1 would actually take up an entire block. You can see this entire block area, a window would take that entire thing. But now I could put a window right there, and then I still have room to maybe put some thrusters on this side. Maybe I can put a light in there. We'll put one right there on the side, and we'll put another one right there on the side. We can put a little block in here. Let's say we wanted to add a nice little corner on that thing. Boom, boom. We could throw in a couple of detailing blocks. if I wanted to give this an edge. You see what I mean? Just with this new unified grid system, we can now do a lot of stuff that we weren't able to do in Space Engineers 1. I could bring that around like that, maybe something like that. And now we have a nice little, I don't even know what it is, but it's something that was impossible in the previous game and is now possible in this game. If you wanted to do a cool thruster shroud, for instance, let's try that out. So we have a thruster going up, and we wanted to do something like, you know, I could do something very interesting like that right there, creating a nice little shroud for this and getting extremely close to the block. So the unified grid system is definitely probably the biggest thing about Space Engineers 2 so far in this vertical slice. And I think this is the one that a lot of players are going to have a lot of fun with. Like, look at this right here. I can probably place a block if I wanted to underneath this right there. Okay, maybe not. I thought maybe I'd be able to place a block under that, but it looks like that takes up the entire area right there, and I can't place a block under the, drats. Okay, well, but at this point, I think you can see what I mean. In Space Engineers 1, this would have taken the entire area, whereas in Space Engineers 2, you can do just a lot with this extra space, and it only takes up the area that it actually takes up. So very nice. Another Space Engineers 2 thing that they have for the new building system is you can undo and redo things. So if I wanted to create, or if I was creating this and I accidentally, boom, placed a block like that, I can hit Control Z and undo that right there. I can then hit Control Y and redo that if I want to, and I can just go back and forth. And if I remember correctly, the undo redo cache system is about 20 blocks long. So if I put 20 of these, or let's just put a couple of these out. Okay, there are 21 blocks right there. So if it's only 20, I shouldn't be able to delete the last one. So let's just go Control Z all of these until we can get to the last one right there. And yep, we are out of history. So 20 is the cache size for the undo and redo actions. But still, this is very good because in Space Engineers 2, in Space Engineers 1 rather, of course, we did not have an undo button at all, which means you could, for instance, accidentally delete the entire grid like that, and you're SOL. What are you gonna do about it? Well, we can hit undo. Okay, never mind. We can't hit undo on that one. In fact, it looks like there's no undo option for that one. That is unfortunate. Wait, okay, let me try that again. If I undo that right there, can I undo my delete? Yeah, okay, so I can undo the delete there, but here I can't undo the delete for this one. Is it because the ship's in the way, I wonder? No, okay, I think we may have found the limitation then. It looks like that grid that I just deleted is a little bit too big to undo. So if we delete something that's really big, like if I delete that, for instance, let's see if we can undo this. So delete that entire ship right there. Undo. Yeah, the undo action has failed. History cleared. Well, guys, it's an alpha. That's why we have the nice alpha ribbon up at the top left. It seems like some actions are not undoable, while others seemingly are. Undo that one right there. We can redo it. Redo, redo, undo. Yeah, okay. Interesting. All right, well, glad we now know that that limitation exists. Guys, don't delete your entire base. Another very nice new tool for Space Engineers 2 is the ability to partial copy sections of a grid and paste them or even create a blueprint from them to use them later. I've got to say that this is probably my favorite or my second favorite feature in Space Engineers 2, but in order to do this, you're going to press Control B, you're going to select your starting block, and then you can use scroll wheel to increase the size of your partial copy area. Anything that has this little red section around it is going to be copied when you're finished with your selection. You can also selectively increase the size of one section by holding Control and then a directional key. So if I do Control and then A, you'll see that the left side of this block is lit up. And while I have that pressed, I can use the scroll wheel to increase the size of that selection area. If I go ahead and hold Control and then D, I can scroll to increase the right side. If I do Control W, I can scroll to increase the top. And if I do Control S, I can scroll to increase the bottom side. If I do Control E, that scrolls to increase the front, and Control Q scrolls to increase the back. So what I'll do is I'll selectively scroll to increase to copy all of this stuff on this side right here. So let's go ahead and increase it out over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this section of grid right here, and I'm going to paste it on the other side of this so I don't have to build it a second time. So I can go ahead and paste that right there, and then boom, I now have another one of these. Maybe I want to add a couple more of these guys right here so I have a little bit of a larger thing right there, and I think that right there is a nice little section. So now what I can do is I could take this entire thing, let's do Control P again, let's grab this bottom section and let's increase the size to cover the entire segment. And I'm going to go ahead and copy the entire thing. So we're going to go up here, and then we're going to bring this all the way over so that it covers this entire segment right there. I don't want to get that other block right there. We're just going to get this segment. Let's go ahead and click to finish that, and we'll paste it in space. So now instead of actually just pasting it on the area right there. I want to make a blueprint of this. So we're going to do Control B to make a blueprint. We'll click this. And we're gonna name it something easy like walkway segment. Save that, and we can do Control X to remove it. And now this is where it clicks. This is what's amazing in Space Engineers 2. If I go to another toolbar here that's not used, I can press G. I can go to blueprints, and I can actually take that walkway segment that I just made, bring it down to my toolbar, and now I can place it as if it were a block. So I can go ahead and place one right there. I can go ahead and place another one right there, or I can hold to drag out multiple sections of this and paste a lot of them at once. It's gonna take a second. That's a lot of segments I just placed, but look at that. That's all placed right there very quickly. It's all got the lights already built because I had lights in the blueprint. It's got this double glass thing on the bottom right here. It's got this little bit of detailing cube and glass on the side, and it's just that easy. I was able to paste all of that with the partial copy tool. I mean, it's amazing. I love it. I love the partial copy tool. So just then you've probably seen my 3 favorite things about Vertical Slice 1 creative mode in Space Engineers 2, and that is the unified grid system allowing us to place blocks on tiny little segments like this. That is the partial copy, which is Control P, and then copying a little segment using our scroll wheel to increase the size and then pasting it wherever we want, like so. Yep, we can paste them however many times we want. And then that is the blueprinting tool, which allows us to press Control B to create a blueprint, click on our grid, and then call that something. And then finally use the G menu to go to our blueprints and drag it down into a hotbar slot and use it as if it were a block. I love that. So those are my 3 favorite tools in building, but if I had a 4th, I'll show you what it is. It's actually going to be the paint gun. This is how we painted this whole section right here. We used the paint gun to go ahead and do that. And it adds a couple of interesting features that are very nice. So if you press R, you have the quick menu. That allows you to select your size. So you can go up to 5 meters. You can see the area. It's a little difficult to see, but yeah, you can kind of see it there. It's that little highlighted area that's showing us what we're gonna paint. So you can paint a lot larger than just one block at a time. You can also select your color here. Currently, you can't set your colors however you want, but you can select from a predefined list right here, which are the Space Engineers official colors. And now we get to the really cool features. So if I go ahead and press middle mouse button while aiming at this yellow with the green color selected, it's going to replace everything. Oh, I'll tell you what was supposed to happen. So what was supposed to happen is I middle mouse button on the yellow and it replaces all of the yellow with the green. But what actually happened is I aimed through the grate right here and pressed onto a gray block. So it replaced all the gray with the green. So you'll see everything that was gray is now green. But if I wanted to go ahead and replace, let's press R, select a new color. Let's say I want everything that is yellow to be black. I can go ahead and middle mouse button, this time not going through the grate, instead selecting on the block. And there we go, it's now replaced with black. So let's say I copy this over to another base. I've just copied this to the red base and I really want it to be nice and red. I can go ahead and grab that. Boom, it's now very red, and I want it to be red and we want it to be red and yellow. Oops, that's not the one I meant to do. Unfortunately, the undo, oh man, okay, this must be a bug because I'm clicking on this one and it's actually doing that one. So that's interesting. Let's click it over here. I think this side worked. Yeah, there we go. So now we have almost IKEA colors. Hang on. There we go. Now we have IKEA colors just like that. We didn't have to go through and paint everything. The replace paint tool lets us do that very quickly. So now we have this nice grid right here in IKEA colors. There will be a couple of bugs like that one that seemed to be painting the wrong block, but it's an alpha. They're still working on these things. This is only the first vertical slice, so we'll see what happens in the coming few weeks. Of course, you do still have the option to paint the entire grid. If you want to go and paint a grid, you can just hold the click button on this. You'll see a timer, and once that timer expires, the entire grid will be painted once you release. So now we have a very white grid right there. Very cool. That's the paint gun. I love it. Okay, that's all the building tools, so we'll move on to the next section, which is going to be the new voxel tools. But if you want a little bit more info on the building tools, Splitsy put out a really good tutorial on all of the building tools that are added in Space Engineers 2, so make sure you check that one out if you haven't already. So the voxel tools in Space Engineers 2 have a couple of upgrades from the Space Engineers 1. So first off, the R menu makes this very easy. Instead of having to use your brackets to select the material, you now have this R option to select your different kind of asteroid material. You can use the R to select your type. So if we wanted to use a ramp, for instance, to build with, we could do that. And you can also select your size here with the R menu as well. So it's definitely a lot easier than using the, what was it before? I think K menu. in Space Engineers 1. So just like in Space Engineers 1, you can actually create voxels. You can also remove voxels with left click and right click respectively. So you can put voxels right there and then use right click to remove them. By default, your voxel tool will automatically project to the voxel, but you can press J to make it go into free space. So there we go, it's in free space, where if I don't press that, it'll try to always go to the voxel, just like that. You can very easily select your voxel material by holding shift and then right clicking on an existing voxel, and that'll select that as the material. Although my voxel is a little large, so it might be a little difficult to do that. Oops, shift. And also that control might need a little bit of help because it's very easy to accidentally delete the voxel if you're not pressing shift, since select and delete are the same key, the only difference being that you hold shift for one of them. But fear not, if you make a mistake, there is an option to reset your changes. So you can use your left mouse button to reset changes in a certain area, and that resets the voxel changes. But in addition to those tools, you also have a brush for painting voxels, where you can use your R to select your voxel type. Then you can run around and sort of paint the surface of that just like that. And then you can use your right mouse button to reset to the original paint if you want to. In addition to those things, new to Space Engineers 2, we have a little bit of voxel illumination as you're underground like this. In Space Engineers 1, if you try to use the voxel hand underground, you'll know that it's very difficult if you don't have any light. But in this one, you do have some illumination coming directly from the voxel tool like this. You can see that it's illuminating the surrounding area. So that's a nice change. Okay, that's all for the voxel tool, so let's move on to the new blocks in Space Engineers 2. Let's take a look at all of the blocks that are coming to space, or that are not coming, that are in Space Engineers 2. Guys, it's out today, so... Okay, here we are on our beautiful catwalk overlooking the blocks in SE2. I've got every single block that they've added to the game, or that they've included in the first release of Space Engineers 2, and we're gonna take a look at all of them. So first things first, we've got the armor blocks. So we have the larger, what is the grid size for this guy? So this is called 2.5 meter grid. Then we've got another variation for 0.5 meter grid, and then finally we've got the detailing block, which goes down to the 25 centimeter grid size right there. So we have, this is just the normal Space Engineers blocks. We have a different variation for all of their grid sizes right here. Next, we move on to the little more, niche blocks here. We've got the half angle blocks, and these ones you'll notice don't have a 25 centimeter grid option. They only have the 2.5 meter and then the 0.5 meter for the major ones that you might remember. Now you'll actually notice that we only have this one angled block right here instead of having the other angled block that they included in Space Engineers 1. Now the reason for that is because in order to make the slope like you would in Space Engineers 1, you would just put down one of these, then you would put down one of those, and then you would put down this block again, and that would make the slope right there. You don't need a second type of angle block that covers that section. In Space Engineers 1, for instance, you would have this sort of block, but again, in Space Engineers 2, that's just two separate blocks like that. So that really allows you to get a lot done with fewer blocks than you would need in SE1. We have a couple more niche blocks over here. Again, doesn't include the 25 centimeter grid system blocks, but we do have the 2.5 meter and the 0.5 meter variations of these. And then finally, we have these ones right here, which again, 2.5 meter and the 0.5 meter variation for those. So those are the armor blocks that they include in Space Engineers 2. Let's take a look at the other structural blocks that they include. So we have a couple of different catwalk variations. These look very nice. I love the catwalks in this game. We've got a couple of different railing variations, the normal railing size and the kind of half railing size right there. We've got a couple of wall variations, and these wall variations are the ones that look really nice when you blow them up. They kind of shatter in a million pieces like this. Yeah, see? We've got a couple of column variations. We've got a column, we've got an angled column, we've got a circular column, and we've got a larger circular column. Then moving over to this side, we have a ramp and a stairs, just like there were in Space Engineers 1. I will say the stairs look quite nice, actually, and the ramp looks very similar to the SE1 variant. We've got a couple of windows. In fact, everything else on the structural section is windows sections, and these are the ones that shatter when you blow them up. So yeah, different windows sections that you can add. They look pretty cool. One like this that includes a side piece, and then some angled ones right here. Let's move on to the actual functional and non-functional blocks in SE2. Now in SE2, a lot of the blocks are non-functional. They're just decorative at the moment. The functionality will come in a future update. So anything on the right here is functional. Anything on the left is non-functional. So if we take a look, we have a drill. This is a functional block. You can actually drill in Space Engineers 1, in Space Engineers 2, although currently there is no inventory system, so you're not going to be collecting anything when you're drilling. You've got a seat right here, which you can use as a cockpit. You've got a cockpit, which you can use as a cockpit. You have a light as well as a smaller spotlight. You have 2 light variations right there. And in fact, these guys are cool because you can actually change the colors in them. Let me figure out how I can do that. I think I might need to go into this cockpit right here. And if you go to this spotlight right here, any of these 2 spotlights, you can change the brightness on them. And you can also change the color on them using either a hex value, which is very cool. In SE1, you would always have to use a hue and saturation, or no, how was it? You used a 3-value system in SE1, but now you can use just a hex code, so you can copy this from the internet if you have a color palette or something like that, and you can change this to whatever you want. So a green light, for instance, I'll pop out of here and you'll see that it's now a green light. I guess while I'm showing that off, I can actually show this off as well. A really cool feature that you required a mod before. It required build vision, but now you can do this in the base game. You can just copy block settings and then go to a different spotlight and paste them into here, and it'll paste all the settings over. So now if I look at my second spotlight, it's also nice and green. Very good. We love quality of life features in Space Engineers 2. Moving on, we've got the gravity generator right here, which is partially functional. Actually, no, it looks a lot more functional than I thought it was. You can set the oh, you can set negative gravity. That's crazy. Okay, I can have a lot of fun with that. Yeah, so you can set the gravity on that thing. You can set the reach of it, and you can set if it's a field, spherical, oh, it pulls me toward it, or cylindrical. We'll just keep it as a nice field one right there. That looks like it's one to have a lot of fun with. One thing I really like about this is that in addition to the ability to press F to open the terminal, you also have this button on it, which is press F to disable. That's very cool. It's like having, you know, in Space Engineers 1, you'd have to put a button on here and then you could do it, you'd configure that. But in SE2, it looks like you automatically have a button to do the disabling. And in fact, before we move on to the other blocks, I want to point your attention to one other thing. We have these context menus, which are very nice. So it says press F to open the terminal. It actually follows your cursor around, which makes it very easy to read instead of floating in space like it was in Space Engineers 1. Again, it's a nice quality of life visual thing, but I like it just the same. All right, so that's our gravity generator. We've got the gyros, which come in 3 different sizes. The large size is very cool to look at, might I just say. And these are, of course, functional. I don't know. Yeah, there's not much you can do in here. So it's partially functional in that it will work as a gyroscope, but you can't like set any overrides or anything like that. There's your small version and there's your medium version. We've got the landing gears, which work as landing gears. We've got thrusters. There's a gigantic double thruster. There's a small double thruster. There's a single thruster, and there's a single thruster right there. And those right there are all of the functional blocks in Space Engineers 2. Let's move on to the non-functional blocks that they've included for decoration. These things will be functional in the future, but are not currently. So we have the button menu right here. This is not functional. There's no way to actually set buttons. And we have a smaller variation of the button. I put this one on a post just so you can see it. We have an antenna, which doesn't do anything right now, but are there for decoration, small and large. We have got a reactor as well. And again, this is a 7.5 meter one, so it's a gigantic reactor covering, I mean, it looks like a Prototech block. This thing's massive, but it's not functional at the moment. None of the power stuff is functional in Space Engineers 2. And I had thought originally that that was a little bit of an interesting thing because it seems like power is not very difficult to add. But there have been a couple of screenshots leaked onto Reddit from the Space Engineers studio that seem to show that power is going to be a little more complex in Space Engineers 2 than it will be in, or than it was in Space Engineers 1. Go check out those screenshots on the Space Engineers official Reddit channel. I may have been one of the people who leaked it, but you didn't hear it from me. Anyways, we've got our smaller version of the reactor. This one right here, you'll notice, doesn't actually have an option to shut down right here. So I'm thinking that maybe they're just, you know, testing whether that's a viable option to have that button over there, and they just haven't implemented on this one. I don't know. But we have 2 variations of a solar panel, which look very cool. We've got a door. Now you might think it's interesting that the door is in the non-functional part because all you do is walk through it, but there's no way to actually close the door. It's just a door frame. We have got the cargo container. There's no inventory in Space Engineers 2, so you can't actually do anything with this guy. It's really just a big hunk of metal, but eventually, of course, you will be able to do stuff with these. We have a 3D printer, aka an assembler. You can't do anything with it, again. But, oh yeah, actually this is the interesting bit right here. So this is one of the things the screenshots leaked. You do have some interesting little slots right here that seem to show interesting little things. I don't know what that's gonna be, but I'm just saying they're there. And that is interesting. If this thing actually makes your components, like, and has an animation, that's gonna be amazing. But anyway, moving on, we have a refinery, which again looks very cool. It's not functional, it doesn't do anything, but it's got like a little tube in here. That looks cool. And it's also got these interesting little signals, or not signals, but icons. I wonder if these are how they're going to be doing modules now. I don't know. Very interesting though. And then finally we have the, oh, not finally, we have one more thing. We have the medical room right here, which is going to allow us to change costumes, but it won't right now, and it's not functional. And then of course over here we have the Gatling gun, which again is not functional. If you want to use the debug tool, you can, but the actual Gatling gun itself is not functional. All right, those are all of the blocks in Space Engineers 2. I don't think I missed any. I can go through these real quick and check, but yeah, I'm pretty sure this is all of the stuff that that they've included in the game. So I should have the only thing I didn't show is the heavy armor variants of the armor blocks over here, but that should be fine. So yeah, those are all the blocks in Space Engineers 2. So the final thing that I want to take a look at in Space Engineers 2 is the ability to convert your Space Engineers 1 grids to a Space Engineers 2 grid and upload them and plop them into your world. This is something that a lot of people requested, and it's something that Keen has provided as a tool. I haven't used it yet, but we're going to try it out to see if it works and if we're able to, you know, copy one of our ships into SE2, and yeah. So to use this tool, we're gonna have to go ahead and load up Space Engineers 1. So let's go ahead and do this, and we'll try importing the AMG Snowstorm into Space Engineers 2. Okay, to use this tool, we're gonna open up Space Engineers 1 and go to a new game with the empty world, and we're gonna go ahead and customize that. We're gonna set choose mods, and we're gonna make sure to bring over the grid exporter mod that I've included in the description. After that, we'll click OK, and then we'll go ahead and start the game. Once the world loads, we'll know it worked because we'll see SE exporter loaded in the bottom left. So let's go ahead and bring our grid onto here. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring the AMG Snowstorm Mark III. And then heading to the front, what we're gonna do is we're gonna aim at this grid, and we're gonna type into the chat /export. We'll type true, and then a second time true. So what this is going to do is it's going to export this grid and replace any unknown blocks with just armor blocks. And if I were to do /export false false, it would just delete any unknown blocks. So unknown blocks would be things that exist in Space Engineers 1 that don't exist in Space Engineers 2, i.e. a lot of things. So let's go ahead and export true true. We'll know that this worked if we see, well, I guess we'll know that this worked if we go all the way to the bottom there and see saved grid to app data roaming Space Engineers storage grid export AMG Sandstorm Mark III.txt. So that's the file that we want. Next, let's go into our computer and grab that file. So let's open up two file explorers. We're going to have one open to our app data roaming Space Engineers directory, and we'll have one open to our app data roaming Space Engineers 2 directory, because we're going to need both of them. So if we go into our Space Engineers 1 directory and then open up storage and then scroll all the way down, we'll find our grid export AMG Snowstorm Mark III.txt. Now, if we go into our Space Engineers 2 directory and open up app data, we'll find this folder called SE1 grids to import. If you don't have this, go ahead and create it. But once we have this, we're going to want to open it and then drag our export into this import folder right here. That's all you have to do. Now let's go ahead and launch Space Engineers 2, and it should do the thing automatically. Back in Space Engineers 2, let's open up our release world right here. Give it a second, and let's hope this works. Okay, here we are. In the top right, we see SE1 blueprint import, successfully imported blueprint. So we should now have it if we press G and go into our blueprints. We'll have grid export AMG Snowstorm with 22,000 blocks. That's a lot of blocks. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go ahead and put it on my hotbar right here. I'm gonna go ahead and paste this into the world, but let's go ahead and paste it. Oh gosh. Okay, this is gonna be interesting. Which way is upside down? That's the right way up. Okay, here we go. There is the AMG Snowstorm Space Engineers 2 edition. Is it functional? That's the real question. You know, actually, here's gonna be the problem. So what it's gone and done is it's replaced everything that it didn't know what to replace with blocks. So that means that all of our hydrogen thrusters have been replaced with blocks because it didn't know what to put in that space. But it looks like a lot of the design is still there. I don't know what these are supposed to be. Oh, actually, okay, so this was a turret, that was a turret, that was a turret. So yeah, it's gone and gone wild with all the turrets. I could do the other option. Yeah, it's just put blocks there. I could do the other option and replace everything it doesn't know with nothing. Let me try that one and see what that one yields. Okay, we should be ready to place this block, and let's see how it compares to the one where we added everything. Oh, okay, it looks a lot more like the Snowstorm, I'll tell you that. Let's go ahead and place it and see. Oh gosh. Okay, yeah, so definitely some blocks are completely gone. Like this area right here is completely removed because it didn't know how to do those Space Engineers 1 blocks, but we do have some areas that are pretty nice. I'm actually interested in exploring this. So going in through the main door in this ship, what we had here, let's turn on our light. We used to have stairs right there, so I don't know where those have gone. This was our inside area right here, and we've got most of it. Well, I mean, I guess some of these armor blocks don't exist in Space Engineers 2. Neither do those stairs. Yeah, so definitely a lot of this stuff down here was completely removed, but we do have something right here. We have our gyros, okay. That's cool. I mean, it looks like a good portion of the actual structure still exists, but a lot of it is just gone, which is fine. I think if you have a smaller ship, then this tool might work a little bit better for you, and especially as they add new things, like if they add hydrogen thrusters or LCDs or anything like that, this will know a little bit better how to convert them. But anyway, yeah, Space Engineers conversion tool. You can mess around with that to see how it decides to convert your ships. But anyway, yeah, that's everything in Space Engineers 2. I'm very excited for this new era of content, especially, you know, this whole new game complete with updates that are going to be coming out. And of course, Space Engineers 1, Keen has committed to putting out more updates for that as well. And we should see the next one in the next couple of months. So that'll be very interesting. But yeah, I've got a couple of ideas for things that I could do in Space Engineers 2, even if not survival like I usually do, that I think are going to be interesting. So stay tuned for that stuff. But everybody, that is everything new in Space Engineers 2. I really hope I didn't miss anything. If I did, let me know in the description. But yeah, are you guys excited? Do you guys have your hands on it? I'm gonna put out another video very soon here on whether or not you should buy the game. But if you already have it, let me know how you feel about Space Engineers 2. What have you been building? What have you been liking the most? Anything like that. But with that, I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to hit the like button, put your comments and your suggestions down below in the comments section, and I will see you all in the next video.